Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we have a chat with a man from Italy. So join me as someone else breaks down their short film and shows you how he made it from start to finish. Today's frame comes from a great friend of mine, Luca Salvi, who so happens to be in the studio today. Salvi, welcome to Start to Finish. Today we're going to be looking at Ink, a project that you worked on very recently, who's now touring the BSFF.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, it's going to be premiering at the BSFF on the 27th of Lager at 6 p.m.
So if we dive in to the actual look of Ink, first and foremost, we start with art. I saw that you guys completely renovated the underground of a building.
I don't take much credit into the art department because, yes, I did give my inputs as it was my job as a cinematographer. But Anouk, our production designer, did a really great job. She found this office that was a basement, and not only she repainted, not only she restructured and uncluttered the whole office, but also she got all those little tiny objects that you wouldn't really think of in the first place. Like, for example, the vintage computers. She actually had to look almost in the whole Belgium to find 6 matching vintage computers that we could use in the movie. We also had a part of the shooting that happened on a set that she built, which was particularly challenging because, yes, the set wasn't very big. As a matter of fact, it was just one corner of a bathroom stall, but it did have to match a real location in which we had filmed. So they had to match the tiles on the floor, the textures and colors of the wall. It was a big effort that I think was successful.
And why build parts of a bathroom set instead of just shooting at your local bathroom?
I don't know if you ever tried to film in a bathroom stall, but A, it's very hard to find the right one. B, even once you do, it's very hard to simply fit the crew and equipment in it. So simply by recreating just the corner of it, just the walls we would see in the shot, it allowed us to achieve a much more complex and rich look than what we would have otherwise.
If we look back at the main set and the actual vibe of it all, did you have a say in the colors and...
As usually the cinematographer does, yes, I had a say in the look. We tried to approach it as practically as possible. We knew with Kazuo, the director, that what we wanted to see on camera was what we wanted to see with our real eyes. To achieve this practicalism, in a way, we had to tweak some practical lights from the set. Of course, oftentimes they were just off, and we would bring in our own lighting kit. But for some shots that were just simply too wide, we didn't have any way to light it, actually. So we simply worked on the little practical tubes that we had on the ceiling. And to those, we did a few things. We did block the sides so that the light would be tunneled down and create this moody atmosphere. And then we added some color correction filters. For example, we had a plus green filter, as well as a CTB, in order to render that green as a little bit colder, since the practical lights were already much warmer than what we were bringing ourselves.
And you guys used one light mainly in the entirety of the shooting. Can you talk about that setup and why you chose it?
It was a rather agile setup, both grip and lighting wise. We mainly lit the movie with one KinoFlow. It was a 4-bank KinoFlow. And to that, we flagged 1/2 in order to keep a little bit of extra contrast on her face. It was never straight on top of her, it was always slightly offset, just so that we would have a side of the face with more highlights than the others. And to this, we added a quarter diffusion as well as some green, plus green gel, to again match this location and the look that we were after. Besides the KinoFlow, we also had a few LED fixtures that were also Fresnel, that we would simply place on the floor outside of frame and shine on the ceiling. So it would be diffused and be coming from above. We had white ceilings. This is the part of the set that we did keep white, exactly because we knew that oftentimes we just wanted to bring the general exposure a little up.
And you used that instead of the actual practicals in the room because...
Exactly, because it allowed us to have more control, to dim it exactly like we wanted and to match the color of the KinoFlow better. Besides a few practicals here and there attached to a dimmer for those warmer lamps, we always had the computer light on. The computer light was a LED bulb a B7C by Aputure, and this was wrapped in a diffusion sheet. And what this light was doing was, besides giving us the justification of the computer as a source of light, was always adding some white light onto this very green lighting to bring back a little bit of the skin tones of the character. So this is a little trick that even if it wasn't the computer light practically, we would often add this little bulb, a little bit offset the camera, just to bring back those skin tones.
And let's now focus on the camera package that you guys actually used. It was the Red Komodo. Why the Red Komodo?
One peculiarity of this camera is that it has a global shutter sensor, which means that it records the image all together and not starting from top and going to bottom, which we really needed for a few reasons. And these reasons are all related to effects. We went from heavy flickering lights to simple low frequency flickering tungsten bulbs on the ground. Oftentimes with a non-global shutter sensor, you see a flickering light and you have the top half of the image that's white, as the second half is still waiting to receive the exposure. We wanted to avoid that. We have a lot of shaky cam in the movie, and by shaky cam, I mean I often went to the tripod and literally shaked it. And with a non-global shutter sensor, that could have been a problem because you find artifacts called rolling shutter, where you basically see straight line become wobbling as you pan your camera. As with a global shutter sensor, since the image is recorded all at once, you don't really get that. And the Komodo is such a small body that we could fit it onto different ways of stabilizing the camera, so different gimbals or steadicams or combinations of the two.
And in terms of lenses, you guys use the Cooke S4 minis, but also the S4 full-sized ones. Why the Cookes?
The main reason why we wanted the Cookes is for what a lot of people call the Cooke look, which means that the image is particularly three-dimensional with these lenses. And since we're shooting in such a tight and small space, these lenses would allow the character to, if not breathe a little more, to become more part of the environment. So you can see this approach both in medium shots and close-ups, where simply it adds a little bit of distance between the character herself and the background. So we wanted to push a bit the office as a character itself in this film, and the Cooke S4 gave us a good way to do that as well.
And did you have a preferred focal length for the shoot? Or?
Absolutely. We shot most of the film in 32mm. We have a few shots, usually medium close-ups, that had to be a little bit more, I would say experimental, but more expressionistic, because it was particularly horrific scenes, for which we used the 25mm. And then we used the 18mm for most of the wide shots.
Okay, so why wide-angled lenses? Because you focused more 32s all the way to, you mentioned 18. Why not say a 50 or a 75?
In my opinion, my philosophy when it comes to picking a lens is that I like to see the world through a camera just the way we see it. And I found that the 32mm is very close on a Super 35 sensor to how we perceive the world. I like not to use a lot of viewfinder, so just go around the set and look and pick for the shots. And the 32mm really gives me the ability to do that.
Did you guys use any filtration on the lens, or was it just
naked?
No,
just ND filters. Whenever outside, we had a set of NDs available on set in case we wanted to really push that 2.8. But it was such a low light situation that most of the times we really didn't need to mount an ND. So the only filters we used was NDs outside and inside pretty much naked.
Very nice. And in terms of monitoring, because we're going to segue onto the color section of this, you monitored with the Rec 709, correct? Did that change how you worked in post-production? Did you completely change the look, or did you stay similar to the Rec 709?
I often monitor my images simply with a Rec 709. I know it's not the best, but I always try to get that look in camera as much as possible via lighting rather than the AT. So what would change between the final look of the film and what we shot would mainly be saturation levels. Some masking, power windows here and there, but mainly the saturation was the biggest thing.
And finally, did you like the end product?
The film?
Yes.
Maybe it's controversial. I am a fan of the film. I know I am one of the few at this point.
I wouldn't say few.
You can tell by yourself by going to the BSFF on the 27th at 6 p.m. and check out the movie yourself.
Well, thank you very much for coming, Luca Salvi.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for watching this sort of longer piece. I wanted to bring in someone else apart from myself to see how, you know, they do their cinematography and have them talk about their techniques and maybe help you guys understand cinematography better from another point of view. And if you're ever in Brussels, of course, you know, make your way down to Flagey if you can to view Ink and support great filmmakers. It was fun working on that project, especially funny because I was a sound operator on that one. And yeah, so, you know, if you can, make it down there. That's it. Next week, we look at the most popular short film on our channel.